Joining us on this week's show, Gary Boulanger talks about his legendary racing career, which included a near-death experience. And Jim Lawson joins us to talk about single-game sports betting and the effect it could have on horse racing. Joe Tilley Sports, coming up! Welcome to the program. Our special guest today, we're pretty excited about this, folks. He hails from Drayton Valley, Alberta. He was a leading rider at Longacre in 89 to 91, Longacres. Leading rider at Calder Park. He was the winner of the 2017 Avelino Gomez Award. He's won over 3,600 wins. He's got over 3,600 career wins, over $80 million in purses. He has won the Queen's Plate, Canada's premier race. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Gary Boulanger. Gary, welcome to the program, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, I understand you're still in on rehab assignment. You had surgery in September. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I had an accident in the morning and I tore my ACL, MCL, and my lateral meniscus. Um, Had to go kind of with COVID. It took a while to get it all diagnosed, and when it finally did and the surgery was done, they ended up doing a bone fusion ligament procedure for the ACL, and then they cleaned up the meniscus, and the MCL was only a level 1 tear that is going to be healed by the time I'm able to be back.
So, what is the timetable? What is your best scenario for riding again?
I mean, I was hoping I was going to make the beginning of the meet. My surgeon and I have talked about it, and I just seen him the other day, and like he's wanting me to give it the most amount of time possible. He's wanting me to wait at least a year from the surgery, just because of the amount of strain and torque that's put on the knee in a riding position. He's afraid that I would re-tear that ligament if I came back too soon. The fusion isn't 100% set yet. But it feels well, and it's doing really good in physio, and it's going through all that really well. He just increased my physiotherapy to where I can start putting some more stress on the knee, more compression exercises where I'm starting to jog and skip. And so, I mean, I'm happy about that. I'm not happy about not being able to make it back to the beginning of the meet.
Well, if anybody can make it back in a hurry, it would be you, my friend. I mean, you've come back from some pretty scary injuries, and we'll be talking about that pretty soon. But I want to talk a little bit about your career and how it started. I know you started riding horses at a very young age. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was for whatever reason, I was very in love with horses at a very young age. I mean, it's all I thought about, all I talked about, and they started me really, really young. I think I was riding my first pony by myself by the time I was 2.5 years old. One of my uncle's farms, and I'd do anything to get to his farm or to anybody that had horses, and that just compounded into doing more. And when I finally had my own horses, and it just kept leading into more and more things, which eventually led into horse racing.
Did you know from the outset that you were going to be a jockey? Was that your plan?
My mom told me that at a very young age. I told her I was going to be a jockey when I grew up. I think I was like in the 6th grade, and I watched the Kentucky Derby on TV. And I had to do a book report on any subject. So I did a book report on Bill Shoemaker. And I said, Mama, this is what I'm going to do. And I never imagined it happening. It just, something you talk about as a kid. Like, I'm going to be a hockey player. I'm going to be a doctor. But I mean, I told her I'm going to be a jockey. She's like, what is a jockey? I said, horse racing. And lo and behold, it was true.
Well, that's interesting because Willie Shoemaker turned out to be one of your mentors, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he did. I was fortunate enough I got to ride in his last race at Santa Anita, and it's a tremendous honor. I mean, Shu was a great guy. I mean, a really guy's guy in the jocks room. He's kind of a jokester. He played pranks on people all the time, but just one of those guys everybody loved.
Now you had stops on the way up in Cleveland and New York before you finally ended up heading to the West Coast. Tell us about your earlier career.
I started actually in Tampa in '87. Um, I come down with a Canadian owner that had Arabians that he was taking to Tampa because they had like I think it was $100,000 stake race there, and then they had some big stake races in Delaware that we were kind of pointing them towards. And I come in, and I already rode one recognized race with the bug in Northlands Park. Like went in and rode for a guy named
Okay.
Brock. So I had my apprenticeship papers, and I come down and I went to Tampa, and he got me a work visa right away because he worked for the Canadian government. And we were there, and I was just getting on Arabians, and there was a bunch of people that were kind of there, and the same. I was getting on the 3 horses he had, and I had no agent bouncing around. I rode a few races, and I think I win my 5th race by like my 12th start there.
That's not
And from
bad.
there, yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
from there I ended up going to Delaware because a bunch of the Arabian people I was riding for were going there, and he said you should go to Delaware. I got some big. And I said, you know what? Well, the horse that Dr. Branch that I come down to Tampa with got hurt, so he was going back to Canada. But he says you're more than welcome to stay if you got a job and you want to do it, you want to try it. Your papers are good. So I ended up staying, and I kind of bounced around and was riding Arabians, and for the bunch of the Arabian outfits were there, and I was winning some races, but not riding. I think I rode 1 or 2 thoroughbreds outside of the Arabians for a couple of months, and an agent seen me riding at Delaware, and he was looking for a good apprentice rider to go to Cleveland, Ohio for the leading trainer, Harmon Drake, at the time. And he seen me ride, and he approached me on. His name was Corey Moran. He just had lost E.T. Barrett had just lost his bug that year. And he was bouncing around looking for a good apprentice for this one particular trainer in Cleveland. That he wanted a good apprentice rider, get some weight off some horses. And so he seen me and asked me if I'd go. And I said, you know what? Sure. And I went and took off right away. I mean, I think I was leading apprentice, second leading rider. I come there 2 months late into the meet, and I almost caught, I think Mike Rowland was the leading rider that year there. I almost caught him. But it was a great stepping stone for me getting into thoroughbreds and winning some races and getting some more exposure.
Well, clearly you had that winning ability right from the outset, and then you moved to Longacres and really took off there. That was a fantastic move for you, as it turned out.
Yeah, I mean, that was another one of those things. Trainers see me riding at Bay Meadows. I just lost the bug the year before, so this would be like '88. And I've been riding at Bay Meadows and Golden Gate Fields. And a guy from Seattle come down, Clint Roberts, a good trainer. He's like leading trainer there several years. And he's seen me riding, and he's like, he came to me and says, you just need to go somewhere where you could ride more races. You're only riding 5 or 6 a week, and you're a good rider. You just need to go somewhere where you can ride more races. And I said, well, he says, would you come to Longacres? I said, well, I don't know anybody there. He says, if you come, you'll ride all of my barn, and you'll ride all of my son-in-law's barn. A guy named Chuck Perry. You'll have first call on anything I have, and he's been leading trainer there 3 out of the last 4 years. I said, you know what? It's a good opportunity. So I went there, and I just took off like wildfire right away.
He obviously liked what he saw in you. And just to clarify for folks watching, a bug, when you lose your bug, that means you're no longer the apprentice rider, and you have to carry more weight, etc. Right? Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah. So now Now, when you're Longacres, you know, as your trainer suspected you might, you started winning pretty regular. In fact, you set a record there,
Yeah,
broke a record set by a guy named Gary Stevens. Not too shabby. How did that feel?
yeah. I mean, yeah, it always feels great when you make something like that. You break a record that was supposedly the unbreakable record. Several people had tried, and Gary's obviously a very accomplished rider, and we're good friends to this day. Um, he like his parents were there. His dad trained Ron Stevens, and they called him up the first year I went there in '89, and they called Gary up and said, "We just adopted another Gary, and he's going to break your record." And he's like, "Dad, I've heard this story before. No way, no way." And in '91, when I was ahead of the pace to break his record, and Gary and I had spoken over the years that I'd go down to Santa Anita and ride in the wintertime. And he called me up and he says, "Listen, don't you break it but like one or two." I said, "Listen, I'm going to shatter it. I'm going to shatter it. I won't just break it by one or two." And he's like, "Okay, great." And when I did break it, he called me that night and he says, "Great job. Congratulations, man." I said, "Thank you."
So, what was the final tally, and how much did you break the record by?
The final tally was 247. The old tally was 233. He actually had
Oh,
he had 5 more days than I did. It was over 125 days. I only had 120 that year.
so that's okay, now you're leading at Longacres, and you're setting records there. And what prompted you to head over to Calder from there?
Well, I actually went to San Francisco and Bay Meadows. I went to Golden Gate and Bay Meadows again
Oh, okay.
because Longacres had been bought by Boeing, and they had one more year left at Longacres. So to go back there for one more year, I'd already broke the record. I decided to go to Bay Meadows and Golden Gate instead of down to Santa Anita in the wintertime and try to break into the Northern California circuit because a bunch of the trainers from Longacres were shifting over there because there was going to only be one more year, so they're kind of branching out. And I went down to Bay Meadows and Golden Gate, and that would be '92. And I was actually in front of Russell Bays at I think it was the Bay Meadows meet. I was like 6 in front of him, and unfortunately, I broke my ankle. But I went there before I went to Calder and that.
Oh, okay. I thought you went right from Longacres to Calder. Okay, but then you went to Calder, and there's more records set over there.
Yeah, I went to Calder in '94. Um, they were looking for a good white rider. A bunch of the owners were complaining that everybody was Spanish speaking. They didn't know if they understood them or not, and so the racing secretary called my agent and asked me if we'd consider it. And at the time, we were at the midst of between Bay Meadows and Golden Gate, where you do the summer fair circuit. You go from Pleasanton to Stockton to Vallejo to Santa Rosa. So every 2 weeks, you're moving to a different meet, and it's kind of a fair circuit. You got quarter horses, Appaloosas, Arabians, and thoroughbreds all running at the same meet. And I said, you know what? Maybe this isn't a bad idea. We should go try it. And if we don't catch on, we don't, like the way our business is, we can always come back for the big meets at Bay Meadows and Golden Gate. So we went there and we caught on right away.
So Calder went well. With Calder, as I mentioned earlier, you set some records there.
Yeah.
Very successful, and but eventually it was back. You made it back to Canada, and tell us how that took place.
It was be the spring of 2000. I just come back off of I broke my back in '99, and I'd been back riding at Gulfstream for about 2 weeks, and I'd win some races, and an agent from Canada called me, Gary Kemplin, who's my agent now. He called me and asked me if I'd consider coming to ride Woodbine. The purses were huge, and he knew I was a Canadian citizen. We'd met. He had Dave Penna before, and I'd rode with Dave, and I'd played golf with Dave, and so I knew Gary, and he knew I was Canadian. He said, "You know what?" So I said, "You know what? Gulfstream's a tough meet anyhow. A bunch of the big guys are here, and I'd already did basically everything at Calder, and I said it wouldn't be a bad idea to go back to Woodbine. There's some big purses, and Mark Frosted was looking for a second rider to go to. I think Todd Cable was his main rider at the time, but Todd had pulled a few no shows, and they were looking for somebody that they could rely on a little bit more. And I said, you know what? Yeah, and I headed up.
Well, let's talk about that back injury because it turned out that back injury had turned out to be a little bit worse than what you originally thought, the way I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd been having some problems with I thought it was like sciatic nerve, right? I was getting you turn the wrong way and you get that bad jolt, and I went down in a spill several months before, but like nothing had been seen. X-rays were negative, really, and kept riding. And I got off the winter circle at Gulfstream one day, and I just hit the ground. I had no legs. I mean, just hit the ground. I couldn't feel my legs. I said, "What's going on?" So they take me into the first aid room, and they're doing this, doing that. I said, "Well, I was getting these funny jolts up my leg, like almost like an electrical shock." So I'd had some hardware in my left ankle they'd had to remove one screw. It was backing out, so they went in and moved one of the screws. So I called my orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Hammerman, and told him, kind of what was going on, what I was saying. He says, "Well, come on in, we'll look at it." So I went in Monday morning, and he says, "From what you're describing, it kind of like I don't think it's a screw, but we're going to check everything out." So they X-rayed me from like head to toe. And he come walking in, and he says, "I'm going to let my partner, Dr. Stauber, explain everything to you." I said, "Okay." So he comes in, and he looks at me, and my wife at the time is sitting in the chair, and I'm on the table, And he says, "Nice to meet you." And he looks over at my wife. He says, "Does she ride?" I said, "No, why?" He says, "You're done." I said, "Whoa, what do you mean I'm done?" He says, "Well, you got 2 fractured vertebrae and a collapsed disc." So what do you mean? I said, "I'm 33. I said, "I can't be done." He says, "Well," then he kind of got into the numbers. He says, "Well, best case scenario, if I only have to fuse 2 of the vertebrae, you got a 50-50 shot of making it back. If I got to do more than 2, you'll never make it back right." I said, "Well, that's better than 0. So we ended up having to do a S1L5 spinal fusion, which was like, I think I was out a year, a month, and a day from the time of the surgery.
Wow. And that's not the first time, right? So, but then you can move to Canada. You just obviously you were ready to go. So you're after a year off and whatever, you were able to come back, and so that was good. Uh, and when you came to Canada, things went pretty well. You in 2001, you got a ride. You got a chance to ride a beautiful filly named Dance for the Dawn, who had some pretty good bloodlines, and that horse did quite well. First of all, winning the Oaks, the Woodbine Oaks, and tell us about that filly.
She was kind of a temperamental kind of filly. She didn't get along with everybody, but her and I really clicked well. We got along, and I rode her as a 2-year-old 1 or 2 times. Then she came back her 3-year-old year, and she'd ran at Keeneland once. So Mark had a really good race into her. We come in the Oaks, and I think I drew the 1 hole, and she flipped in the gates, and so she didn't get away that good. So I was way further back than I really wanted to be, but I just worked my way through traffic, and she ended up running them down pretty handily. Had to do more than I really wanted to do, but she got the job done. So I was like, "Wow, okay, now we're going to come back in the plate in 3 weeks."
Right. Was she the favorite heading into into the Oaks?
I believe so. If not favorite, co-favorite.
And
maybe Field had a filly in there that was pretty well touted too.
Right. Her mother's Dan Smartley, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
funny
So
thing is the
there's
way,
some good bloodlines.
yeah, the way I inherited her is in 2000 when I came up from Mark. I'd come up and he had two colts that year. Todd Cable was riding them both. One was a maiden, and one was had just ran in the plate track.
Hmm.
And so I worked the maiden, and his name was Scatter the Gold.
Right.
I worked him, and I was like, I told my agent, I says, "Wow, this horse is a nice animal." I said, "This is a really nice horse," and he was big and strong, and I mean, did everything right. And Todd kind of got upset when I worked him, and he said, "Listen, I don't want to ride that horse. I want to ride that maiden. I want to ride Scatter the Gold. I've been riding him. I don't want to ride it." So Mark had promised him to us, and Todd kind of got upset about it. And Mark said, "Listen, I'm sorry. I know I told you you could ride this horse, but I got to let Todd ride him. That's what he wants to ride. Don't worry, I'll make it up to you." So he ends up winning the plate. He win the, I think he win the Princess, the Fort Erie race as well, the Prince of Wales.
The
I said,
right,
wow.
Prince of
I
Wales.
said,
Yeah.
how
The
do you
second jewel.
make that? Yeah, how do you make that up to me? Like you're taking me off a horse I think and win it, and he does win it. But he said, don't worry. So he gave me him. He gave me Dance to the Dawn. He gave me another filly that was could have been anything as well. But that's how I really got on Dance to the Dawn.
Well, let's talk about that Queen's Plate race with Dance for the Dawn because we have some video of that as well, and yeah, that was no gimme. That's for sure.
No, Wind
Would you
City was
call
the
a
big.
dance? Would you call this? Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Wind City was like the big danger, but like I really liked her because she had really learned how to rate, and her and I got along well. And the only concern I had was post position. And so when you get to draw your number, like Mark and I are talking about it, and he says, "Well, what number do you want to be?" And I says, "Well, how many are there?" He says, 17. I said, "I want the 17 hole." He said, "What are you crazy?" I says, "Listen, I want to be in the gate as little time as possible as I have to be in there, and I don't want anybody being on my outside that can try. If she doesn't get away well, they can push me over. I get squeezed back, shuffled. I can control the race from there." There was like two cheap speed horses in there that I knew couldn't go the distance. I says, "I can sit there and track those two easily. I can control the race from being on the outside." So when they pulled her name and Mark walked up and said 17, they all started this big this big ooh, wah, wah, wah. But that's kind of why I seen the race falling out. My only danger was Wind City, but if I could control the race, I didn't think he could run me down if we were on level playing field.
So did Mark actually end up with the first pick?
No, it was like I think 5 or 6, and there might have been 5 or 6 horses
Okay.
ahead of us.
Okay. Okay. But it turned out to be exactly did the race unfold exactly how you thought it would?
Exactly. She broke really good.
Right.
Casero had a cheap speed horse in there, and there's one other one. I laid third to them and just sat there and tracked and tracked. And when I spotted Wind City at the 5/16 pole starting to come up to me, I looked under my arm. I could see him, and I asked her, and she just kicked
Right.
on, and she held off by like a length. But he wasn't going to get by her if we went another time around there.
Yeah. Yeah. Good horse. That was a lot of fun. How much would how
Yeah.
much what was that like to win the Queen's Plate? Because
Oh,
that's
it's
unbelievable.
undescribable. I mean, your emotions are so amplified. You don't know, like you cry, you're screaming in joy. I mean, every emotion is just so amplified. I mean, then when everything all sets in, you're like, wow, man, I just like it's an amazing feeling.
Right. A Canadian rider, there can't be anything better than that, really, can there? It's
Kentucky Derby would be the
what's
only thing.
right. Yeah, yeah, of course that would be all right too. Yeah. For
Yeah,
for a jockey of any nationality. Right. So
yeah,
let's talk about okay, so things are going well in Canada at Woodbine. You win the Queen's Plate, but then
yeah.
heading south in the wintertime and you're at Gulfstream Park in 2005. your mount loses its footing and you went down and you were trampled. It was a nasty spill at Gulfstream. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was riding a horse called In Hand for Vicky and Phil Oliver. Mr. Humphrey was the owner, and I just actually had rode him at Calder. The I think it was the McKnight Stake. It's a mile and a half on the turf, and he ran
Wow.
second or third in that. And this was the next mile and a half stake. It was a mile and 3/8, I think it was. Um, Nice horse, and he's moving up to fourth. Me and Joe Bravo were moving together, and he just lost his footing, and down I go, and I get catapulted up in the air, land in front of him. Two horses jump over him and run me over. Subsequently, I suffered a subdural hematoma, fractured my ribs, lacerated my liver, ruptured my spleen. It's pretty messed up.
Well, that was. I mean, I'm. You were told after that, though, that you definitely. I mean, from what I understand, when you were on the operating table, you actually died on the operating table.
I
Tell us about
flatlined
you.
twice.
I mean, what do you remember about any of this? Right.
No,
What do you
I don't.
remember about
I
any of this?
don't. Nothing. I mean, I only know what my agent and my wife told me, at the time. Like they didn't even know I had a head injury. They sent me to the hospital for X-rays and observations. And when I got there, they were back in the ambulance, and my blood pressure just crashed. So they do a CT scan on me, and they find the lacerated liver and the ruptured spleen. They come out and tell my wife, my agent, we got to do emergency surgery. He's bleeding internally. We got to remove his spleen and whatever else. So they go in and do that. About 3.5 hours later, they're wheeling me out of that surgery, and my head just swells like a beach ball. Like, oh my God. So they put me under the CT scan again, and they find the subdural hematoma. They come back out to my wife, to now the neurosurgeon, says, we got to do surgery on Gary right now. We found a subdural hematoma. He's recovering from the first surgery, but like there was a big problem. And she's like, what do you mean? He says, we have to do surgery right now or he's going to die. So she signs the papers. Like they go back in and they end up having to excavate half of my skull just to keep the cranial pressure from getting too big. And that ended up being about I think 9.5 hour surgery. And in the midst of all that, I ended up flatlining twice. Everything my body had gone through, and but I don't remember any. I don't remember anything until I started. I come out of the coma. I think it was 30 days after the surgery.
So you got a blood clot in the brain. You've got a coma for 30 days, and it's a miracle that you got through it. And then of course you had
Yeah.
to learn to do everything all over again, like everything, from what I understand.
I mean, I had to learn how to walk again, eat. I had to learn how to eat again. I mean, I couldn't eat anything more than a half a cup, and I just start throwing up. And the the right side of your brain, there's a spot that triggers vomiting, and that's where the injury was to the right side. So if I eat more than a half a cup of soup, I just start throwing up profusely. So then I had to get in with a therapist, and they're putting me through all this stuff. This is what you have to do. They let me eat at like a quarter of a time, wait 5 minutes, and eat a quarter more, and eventually you build up, build up, build up. I had to learn to walk again. My balance was just all over the place, and now I got half my skull missing. So I'm this big risk for the hospital, so I couldn't go anywhere without two nurses at my side. But I'm also this very fit athlete who doesn't want to sit still. So like I'm like going, 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 and they're like, you gotta give this guy some drugs, you gotta slow him down. I actually tried to escape. I was going home. I didn't want to stay in the hospital. I tried to escape. I get down to the main entrance. Here I'm on the fourth floor in the hospital. I get down to the main entrance with just my gown on and my freaking IV trolley. Well, the nurses called down there, and here's these two big security guards that probably weighed about 240, 260 each of them. They got the door blocked, and they see me coming with this freaking trolley and my freaking gown on, right? Where are you going? I
Get
said, I'm
out of the
going
way.
home. They said, no, you're not. I said, no, I'm going home. They take me back there, and they end up putting it looked like a watch on my wrist. You know, they told me it was a monitor for my heart. Like, so I'm like, okay, whatever. Next day, I tried to get out again, and I get close to the freaking elevators, and the alarms and whistles go off. And the nurses couldn't keep up with me, right? So they said, okay. So
Right.
when I finally did get out of
Yeah.
there, I think my one head nurse had lost 17 pounds in 3 weeks. I kept walking, like I'd walk the around the corridor nonstop, but they couldn't let me be by myself because I had no skull on the one side. So every time I'd get up, they'd have to come. I just keep walking. This poor old lady, God bless her. I mean, she kept going round and round we go. I don't know how many miles we get. She told me, she said, I lost 17 pounds when I was your nurse. I said, God bless you. She goes, no, it's great. It's the best thing. I said, okay.
You were her best patient ever, even though she had to chase
Oh,
you every
yeah.
day. It was,
It was the greatest.
yeah, yeah. It's like those like criminals you have to put a leg bracelet on them
Yeah.
to monitor their whereabouts. You had the same kind of thing in your wrist, right? That's
It was
funny.
like,
So,
you know,
but you weren't done racing though, Gary. You weren't done racing. You knew you had to stay in the game, so you tried
I tried,
other avenues.
my neurologist, says I obviously I went through physical therapy for the next 2 years. So now we're like at 2007, and I had a meloclonic seizure. And so now they put me on all these different medications. And so now I can't, once you have one of those, like you lose your driver's license. So I can't drive, I can't do anything. I don't know what I'm going to do, not do. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do for life. Like I knew horse racing, and I knew horses. Some guys want me to possibly train. So, I said, okay. So I started playing around with that, and finally got my driver's license back in 2008. Um, Trained for a year for these little, nickel and dime kind of owners. They didn't have a whole lot of money, but they had their hearts were in the right place, and they had these old, beat up, claiming horses. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I'll do it.
Right.
And so I started training off a training center at first, but then I eventually got stalls at Calder, and I think I win 6 or 7 races, and it was fun, but it was a lot of work. But it was, of course, not every owner really lives up to their what they say they're going to do, and when it comes time to get paid, I think they got me for about 9 or 10 grand. I was like, you know what, this is no good. Training cheap
Yeah.
horses, I had 5 cheap horses, and chasing my money every freaking month, and I was given I'll catch up, and when it comes time to catch up, I got it in the shaft. I said, you know what, I'm going to do something different, and I kind of got out of
So,
training, and
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't have the right kind of owners to really be in it anyhow, and I said, I'll try something different. And I was an assistant trainer, and then I started just working that way, and kind of got pushed towards buying and selling yearlings with a lady I ended up marrying 5 years later. And I did that, and that's what led to
So
Mark
you're
Cassidy.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about Mark Cassidy. Tell us about your decision to give riding a try again.
Well, I'd been getting on horses ever since like 2008, and I'd been breaking horses and working for a couple different outfits. And one year, and I think it was 2012, early, Mark was looking for another good breeze rider, and the farm I was living at, that ended up being my farm, that me and the girl I married, is her farm. We were close to OBS, and I was working way in Williston, which was like 45 minutes away one way. Mark was looking for a good breeze rider, and OBS was only a mile and a half from the house. I said, all right. So I went there, and one of his assistants said, "Oh, yeah, I know Gary. We'd love to have you." I said, "Okay." So I started working there, and I was breezing all these freaking nice horses. I mean, like Delegation was there. Uh, he had all these classy stake horses, and I mean, he had a whole bunch of nice babies. And I worked with him, and comes to 2013, and I'm been working with him for like almost a year, and running some of my own horses and getting some bad rides, and thinking, why don't I just get my license again? If I could get hurt just as bad in the morning breezing horses and galloping horses as I could in the afternoon, why not reap the rewards? If you're taking that chance, why not have the
Right.
possibility of that paid? I says. So then I started looking into getting cleared. What I'd have to do to get cleared. So once my doctor, my neurologist, he had to perform a whole bunch of tests. Then he had to submit all the reports to the racing association, and he did that. And Mark had several nice horses that I had been breezing and I loved. He had Kagan, was a maiden. He was a 3-year-old that never started, and I thought the world of him. And we worked him, and I told Mark, this is a really nice horse. He said, yeah. So we worked him one day with Delegation, who was a 4-year-old. He'd ran third in the Breeders' Cup Mile as a 3-year-old on the dirt. And they were getting him ready. So Mark said, yeah, work with this horse. And Mark we had walkie-talkies and earpieces on you to tell you to speed it up, slow it down, things like that. And but we worked together, and we're at the 8th pole, and then we're head and head. And Mark says, okay, go ahead, let him out. And so both of us kind of asked our horses for what they had. Who had more would go on and win. And I just walked away from Delegation for fun. He just blew them away.
Wow.
I was like, so I'm going back to the barn, and I got to go by Mark's office to get to his stall. And Mark's there kind of with a little smile on his face. And he says, yeah, you're right. I says, hey, Mark, if I got cleared to ride, could I ride this horse? I kept on going. I go in his stall, and I'm taking his tack off, and I come walking out. Mark's there, and he says, you're thinking of riding again? And I says, if I could ride one like that, yeah. I think Mark said, if you get cleared to ride, you can ride him. I said, great, fantastic. About 2 weeks later, I got my medical clearance to ride. And
Wow.
Mark knew it, and I rode, I think it was 4 races at Tampa, and hadn't won any yet. I had ran like some thirds and fourths and things like that. And Mark has a horse called it's a maiden going in the OBS stakes. He was a 3-year-old maiden that Mr. and Mrs. Oxley owned. He says, you know what? His name was Conquestor. He says, I'm going to put you on this colt in the sprint. We don't expect that. All I want you to do is have him running at the end of the race, because all his races at Woodbine as a 2-year-old, he showed speed and he backed up from the 8th pole home. So all I want you to do is have him finishing at the end. I don't care if you run 3rd, 4th, whatever. As long as he's running at the end and he galloped out good. I said, okay, no problem. So it kind of was no pressure on me, but I had breezed him and I galloped him. I knew everything about him. I knew he had a really big move, but I didn't know how tough he was to handle when he came out of a starting gate in the afternoon. So, I was like, okay. So we get in there, and it's a 3/4 of a mile on a poly track, and, he breaks, and he's really quiet. I was like, okay, great. Well, next thing you know, I'm like 17 lengths last at the half-mile pole.
Oof.
And Mark is like, he tells me, like, him and his wife are watching, and they're like, oh, my God, this is going to be an abomination. Tina tells me he was cursing me. He was cursing me. God damn. He's walking away. And when I finally asked him to run, just as we're coming to the 3/8 pole, I'm like probably 15 lengths off the leader. And I knew he had a big move, but I didn't know he had that big of a move. But when I asked him, and I started going through traffic light, Tina grabs Mark and says, turn around, he's coming. Like he wins by like 2.5. Mark says, I don't know what you do, Gary. Like you've never lost it. You're amazing. I said, well, thank you. No, thank you. And the next day he asked me what I was going to do for the summer. And I was like, I don't know. I figured I'd stay in Florida. I mean, I win several titles here in Florida. I got a lot of people would be behind me. I mean, probably pretty easy for me to get going. He says, well, would you consider coming to Woodbine? I said, well, I've been there. I win the plate. I win the Oaks. I said, to go up there and not have anybody big behind me, it'd be really tough to get going. And he says, you'll ride half my barn. I said, well, okay,
Wow.
let's go. Let's go. That was 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was a
Well,
big backer. I mean, he's behind me all the way. We still talk to this day, and he was concerned about my leg, and he's a great trainer, great man of his word.
well, that's a miraculous story, Gary. It really is, and you know, so you're coming back, and now you become a regular rider at Woodbine again. We got some busy. You're winning the passing moot stakes aboard a horse called Zestina a couple of years back,
Oh yeah,
and
Mr.
so you sorry.
That's from Frank Stronach's horse.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, one of the Stronach stables horse. Yeah, with Sid Attard.
Seditard, yeah.
So you got yeah. So you got some pretty good connections when you come back, and it's a great story, and it's so nice to see getting a chance to ride some of these horses. But and when you do get that chance to ride, I mean your winning percentage is great. You're doing a fantastic job. I mean, still one of the leading riders despite what you've gone through. That's a miracle, right?
Yeah, it's been amazing life. I mean, I couldn't have imagined being able to meet the people that I've met and ride the horses that I was able to ride. I mean, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to getting back.
Any concern like over the injury? Do you ever have any thoughts like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be riding, I shouldn't take this chance, or anything? Does that ever pop in your mind?
No, I mean, the day I don't feel um, that I'm able to compete at the level I want to be at, that's the day I'll say, guys, you know what? It's time to call it a career. I think I got a lot left to give. I think I can still ride at the best. Um, it's just a matter of giving the leg enough time to be 100% that I'm happy with it and the doctor's happy with it.
Right. Now here's another moment we got for you. This is like um, the well, the Queenston Stakes in 2019. Tell us about that race. That's with Mark and with Qatar Stable.
Oh, this is
Federal law.
federal law. Um,
Yeah.
I picked him up. I mean, I hadn't rode him. If I'd worked him, I obviously with Mark, I got to work a lot of the horses, and a lot of horses I worked, I didn't get to ride. But I mean, him and I had a really good working relationship that way. He liked my feedback on horses a lot. Um, he had we tried running him in the plate trial and really ranked to rate going long. I think he ran the plate trial after this. But in this stake here, I mean, I knew he had a typical European type horse. He was, he got some cover. He had a big move once he did get through. Um, he's nice to ride, and he sure enough, had great cover, and he split horses at the 3/16 pole, went through a pretty tight hole, and shot through there and actually run down Mark's other horse. Um, but he was a nice little horse. But like when
That
we
was a
tried
nice,
going
yeah.
long with when
Yeah.
we tried going long with him in the plate trial, like he just was. He didn't have no cover, and he seen daylight, and he just kept on trying to go instead of relax, and he just took that spurt out of him that he needed at the end, and he ran third, I think, was in the plate trial, but he was really tough to ride going 2 turns.
Now, here's another event that we probably didn't see coming back in, say, 2005 after that spill. But a couple of years ago, you won the Avelino Gomez Award, which is named after that amazing rider, Avelino
Yes.
Gomez, who died as a result of the spill. And interesting that a guy who'd been through so many injuries, so many difficult injuries. But what was it like to get it? Because you received the award, all your peers are there, and
Yeah.
it's there's Avelino's. I believe it's his nephew, maybe
Huh.
it was perhaps, and
Yeah. I don't remember, but
yeah.
um, obviously, highly honored. I mean, it was scary knowing the amount of accidents I'd been through, and that this guy lost his life doing what he loves. I mean, he was from what I was told, he was a tremendous showman. Like he was a crowd kind of guy, get up on the rail and do. I mean, he just was
Hmm.
a great guy, and
Flip off his
loved
horse,
racing.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, just did great things. I mean, just was a tremendous athlete, and obviously, I'm highly honored that I was given this award as well.
Now, the thoroughbred season is just around the corner. It's going to be a little while before you're ready to go. It looks like, but hopefully you're ready by the time hopefully that the therapy goes, the physio goes well, and by maybe midsummer, maybe
Well,
earlier summer, because there's some big
right
races coming up.
now, yeah, right now, I mean, my surgeon, they're sometimes they're a little more on the cautious side, and I understand that. I was like, this isn't my first industry. Obviously I've been hurt several times, so never had a knee injury, but it's definitely a little bit different than anything I've experienced. But he's allowed me to step up physiotherapy, and we're going to start stressing out a little bit more and see how that does for the next several months. If everything goes accordingly and he's happy with it, he might release me right then and there. He would love to see me wait until September, where the surgery's been given a full year, so that bone fusion can really take, and everything can be set, and he'll be happy in his mind, because the last thing he wants to do is put another ligament in me or have to do even more to me if I come back too soon, and some incident happen where a horse ducks the wrong way and I pivot off that knee and I re-tear it.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to take that chance. I mean, you
Well,
have been
yeah.
known to come back from injuries that nobody else comes back from, but that might be pushing it, right?
Well, I mean, he's concerned that I'd pull the fusion loose if it wasn't set long enough. So he's
Hmm.
obviously the surgeon and he knows the pros and cons, and I know my body, and we've been communicating, and like he said, all right, then let's we increase the physio to where we're going to start stressing out a little bit more and see how it takes to that. And if it takes well, and he says let's maybe get on a horse or two and see how it feels. Obviously you can't predict these animals. You
Yeah.
can go down in a still, or a horse could flip on me again and it could be the other leg. I mean, injuries happen in our game. I want to
Right.
do what's best for the people I'm going to ride for. So I want to be 100%, not 70%. I don't want to have anybody's doubt in their mind about, whether it's healed or not. When I come back, it's going to be 100%, and I'll be as strong as ever.
Well, Gary, it's well, he probably won't have to chase you around the hospital and put a bracelet on you. Then I'm guessing, right?
No.
Gary, listen, you got an amazing story, and it's not over yet. There's more to come, and it really should be a movie, my friend. It's as a guest on Joe Tilley Sports, we have a foursome for you at Club Link. Jim Lawson says you're a pretty good golfer. Got him
I
coming up
am.
on the show. He said maybe a bit of
I
a
don't know if I
sandbagger,
can.
but
I don't know if I can swing. I haven't. I don't think surgeon's gonna let me swing a club for a while yet.
yeah. Well, Gary, thanks again, buddy. It's good to have you here, and
Thank
great
you.
to see you. And good luck in your recovery.
Thank you so much, Joe. You have a great day.
Single game sports betting may soon be a reality here in Canada. Currently, only parlay betting is allowed, but politicians in favor of Bill C-13 say that this will present a huge revenue opportunity. But where does that leave the horse racing industry, and where do they stand with regard to that bill? Joining us now is the president and CEO of Woodbine Entertainment Group, Jim Lawson. Jim, tell us, how does this affect the horse racing industry, and are you on side with it?
Hey, Joe. Great to be on and giving me the opportunity to talk about this. Thank you. Uh, Listen, as the private members bill currently stands today, it leaves the horse industry behind and in a very difficult position. What it would do if it is unamended, it would allow these major players, sports betting operators, which are household names, to come into Canada legally for the first time and to offer wagering on horse racing. And the first biggest problem with that is they would not be paying for the cost of the purses, the operating costs, and as we've seen in other jurisdictions in the world, and particularly Australia, which is what I said to the Justice Committee, the idea of fixed odds wagering, which is the product they'd offer because it wouldn't be a pari mutuel product that we're used to in Canada today and that we're using legally, is fixed odds wagering is very popular, particularly with the younger demographic of wagers and horse racing wagers, and our large bettors are often they like the comfort and the predictability of fixed odds rather than, as we know, with pari mutuel, the odds can bounce around. And if you've got a lot of money at risk, you'd rather know what you're risking than seeing that pari mutuel ticker go from 5 to 2 to 4 to 5 when the gate opens. So it's very problematic for the horse industry the way it is currently.
So what would you do to fix it? Like, how would you implement that into horse racing? How do you make that work?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple fix. It in the amendments to the criminal code, which would allow single events sports wagering, betting, as opposed to parlay wagering. It falls under the definition of lottery scheme that will be passed down to the provincial lottery corps to manage and control. But you simply would not insert. You would simply back out horse racing wagering from the lottery scheme, and you would leave it that the only legal wagering on horse racing is through the section in the criminal code that allows pari mutuel wagering on horse racing as regulated by the CPMA. So it's really just pulling it out. What it currently would do, Joe, is it would have the impact that fixed odds wagering on horse racing would not be legal in this country, which is a topic for another day down the road about the ability, and I would suggest that it should be within the purview of those that hold pari mutuel licenses to ultimately offer fixed odds wagering.
So would you have like a situation where you got like a pro line the way it sits now? Like, for example, you put a racing dates on the pro line car ticket, and all those race a race odds would be fixed. You'd make your bet on the pro line. I don't know, say maybe one night a week, you'd pick one race to bet on the pro line card or something along those lines. Have fixed odds on that race, and then that money would go back into the racing industry. Is that what you're talking about? Something along those lines?
Ultimately, that would be a great idea. As long as it goes back into the racing industry, we could see ourselves, both Woodbine Entertainment and I believe the position of the racetracks across the country, that we would support fixed odds wagering on horse racing, but it certainly can't go to those that don't contribute to the horse racing industry in terms of purses, in terms of operating costs, support for breeders, support for the horsemen's groups, all of the things today that come out of the wagering dollar, the pari mutuel wagering dollar today. And that's the magic of all this. All those groups, including the regulators, are supported by the pari mutuel wagering dollar. If you had foreign companies coming in here and offering fixed odds wagering on horse racing, none of the income would go back to support horse racing, and we just can't have that. I mean, it would literally, and I don't think I'm too dramatic when I say this, it would put horse racing out of business in this country. And I think we got that message through with the Justice Committee a couple of weeks ago now, and I think we should be in good shape. As actually last Tuesday, when I say a couple of weeks ago, it was we've been discussing it for a couple of weeks with and more with the Attorney General's office, but I appeared at the Justice Committee along with other representatives of the industry last Tuesday.
So does it seem then that the Justice Committee is on side with this and they're willing to maybe add your amendments to this bill?
I'm expecting and hoping. I certainly they were listening and asked the right questions, and I really do think that as a result of a lot of effort on our part and by the industry's part, that the Justice Committee does understand that to do otherwise, i.e., not to amend the private members bill, could have put a very large industry and most importantly a large employer in this country out of business. And the history, as I said, I drew the analogy for them to Australia, where fixed odds wagering now surpasses pari mutuel wagering in Australia.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of money involved here because according to some, Canadians bet about $14 billion a year with dubious or unlicensed entities, as it says here. Yeah, that sounds like a heck of an opportunity for the newly regulated operators, and if Woodbine is one of those, that would be a great thing. This would help produce more jobs. I mean, there's 50,000 people, I think the estimate is, working in the horse racing industry in Ontario alone, and that's a lot of jobs lost if this thing isn't, if you guys aren't considered in this at least, and have an opportunity to at least be part of this deal and part of the process, and part of the decision making process. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, you've made a good point. Here's the interesting thing about this sports betting legislation opening up in Canada as it relates to horse racing. Number one, there's no question in my mind, and the experience has been in other jurisdictions, that the sports wagering dollar is going to cannibalize the pari mutuel dollar. There will just simply be some of the people who wager on horse racing today and can now wager on professional sports legally. They're going to do that, and I think it's there's only so many wagering dollars to go around. So there is a concern that our wagering dollar will diminish as a result of sports betting coming into the country. So that's the downside, and it's been the experience in New Jersey that it will detract from our pari mutuel pools with people turning to sports betting. The upside, however, Joe, is that a lot of these major wagering companies, their origins were in horse racing. And when you think of a company like William Hill, who started in the 20s and got in a famous battle with Winston Churchill in the 30s about public totes and government totes versus the private bookie totes. In Australia, the companies from there, Tabcorp and companies like PointsBet, a lot of them have horse racing backgrounds, and they want to offer horse racing as part of their product offering. So if this is pulled back, as we suggest, out of the lottery scheme, and they want to offer it, they will have to come to companies like Woodbine Entertainment and say, hey, can we do this with you? Because we'd like to offer horse racing wagering as part of our offerings in sports betting. And it puts us, for a whole lot of reasons, in a pretty enviable position if they want to offer horse racing as part of their offering. So it could be very good for us, and we're working through right now just trying to align ourselves with the right parties. And Woodbine is in an enviable position today, largely because of our HPI network and the breadth of it, our regulated status and our cash management policies, a lot of regulatory framework that we have today that will be very attractive for these companies coming into Canada to look at us as a potential partner.
Right, and it's interesting, when you go to the UK and you're outside the track and you see the Ladbrokes and the Lloyds and the Williams setups, booths outside the racetrack, and the money is going back into the racetrack, right? The money's going back into it, but they're setting their odds separately, but still the money's going in. So it's a situation that works pretty well there, and I think that would probably work well here.
Well, that's a good point, Joe. Structurally around the world, whether it's in Australia, even as we've seen recently in New Jersey, they have found ways, the legislators, to protect the horse racing industry. They realized the threat that it would cause if there wasn't some sort of structural framework. And so this is not novel for sports betting legislation to step up and protect the horse racing industry. And we feel that they will do it here. There's different ways to do it in New Jersey. Monmouth and Meadowlands actually gave out gaming licenses and or licensed people, and so they are participating directly. So Jeff Gorell at the Meadowlands will tell you, for example, it hasn't been great for our pari-mutuel pools, but now that he's participating in sportsbook and sports betting directly through his partnership, then he's very comfortable, and it's actually been good for the horse racing industry in New Jersey. And I think that's important that we have some framework here that protects horse racing and hopefully, as I say, is beneficial to the industry.
Let's talk about Woodbine and how are things going with the new Woodbine Entertainment Center? How is progress on that? Where are you at?
Well, it's definitely slowed down. The casino expansion, the entertainment center, the hotel, they've made more progress than you might have thought during this pandemic. They've been able to work most of the time, but during shutdowns and early on, there was no construction activity, and so it's been delayed. There's still I can't give you the exact dates, but I think they're still planning hopefully late 22, spring of 23 now in terms of grand opening, and it's better than one would have thought. And in terms of the development around it, it is also moving. There's a entertainment district right beside where that music theater is supposed to go, and you know, part of the concurrent construction as they work on putting the foundations in, as they have, you know, they've also starting to prepare the site for an entertainment district right beside, and we've been spending most of our time, Joe, on the GO Train project, working with Metrolinx and working with Ellis Dawn, and now we're working with both the province and the city in ensuring that the zoning is in place to accommodate it all. We clearly need different zoning around that train station in order to make the train station economically viable, and so we're working through that quite diligently these days, both with the province and the city, to ensure that this train station, which would be great for Woodbine, but really great for the entire region and employment in the region if there's mass transit to a site of our size, which is 700 acres and really needs and deserves mass transit.
Well, that's going to be a big boost for the economy. I want to talk about harness racing. You during the you had to lock things down, shut things down for a while. The record was extremely good before the lockdown. How are things gone? How have things gone since the reboot? Is everything good with harness racing right now?
Yeah, it's going very well. The wagering's been a little spottier the last couple of weeks, but that's really hard to get to the bottom of why it is. But you know, we're often you know, on weekends we're over 2 million, which is a big number for us, and during the week it's 1.6, 1.7, and you know, we'd like to push it back up 2 million every night, and 2.5 to 3 million even on weekends, and we might get there. The racing is going to get better, as of course as it always does as the year goes on, but we're just now building towards full field sizes, and I think that I'm very pleased with how we've done in what really has been a wagering environment without any bricks and mortar. So we've done well. And as far as the other thing that's important to mention is safety. We continue to have strong safety procedures and protocols, and we're very pleased with the way that's going and the cooperation of all the horse people out at Mohawk. They've been great. They've been understanding, and we just have to continue to send that message out to keep it going so we can keep racing.
Right, and then you know, the thoroughbred season is just around the corner. You excited about that?
Well, Joe, that was a perfect segue. I think you did that on purpose. I mean, the big issue we have is safety and making sure that Woodbine is allowed to proceed. I mean, I've been quite vocal about it. I expect we and I are about to start another campaign with government to say, hey, we've got 1,200 horses on that backstretch today, which is the most we've ever had in the second week of March. We're expecting to have 2,000 horses back there. We had stall applications for well in excess of what we could handle. We're expecting a full complement of 2,000 horses back there. That means outside of Woodbine employees, there's probably close to 3,000 people working out there every day. They are all coming. They are all expecting to race April 17th. They deserve to race. It's outside. We have the procedures. We have the protocols. And of course, the economic hardship, it would be devastating if we don't start April the 17th. There's no reason whatsoever that the health authorities can't look at the experience both last year, both at Woodbine and Mohawk, and what's been happening in the last month at Mohawk, and say, yes, live racing without spectators is safe, and actually it's no riskier than what we do 7 days a week there in the morning at Woodbine. And so we have to get onto this. We have to get through to the right people. I spoke to senior people in government last week, and they say they agree, but we really need to get the attention of the health authorities to turn their mind to this. And as it stands today, we wouldn't be able to start if for so long as Toronto is in the gray zone, we won't be able to start at Woodbine. And so we need Toronto to come out of the gray zone into the red zone, or we need that gray zone language amended, which we should be pushing for, and we will push for. It's critical. I don't think people realize that, but we're going to be very vocal about it, and we should be. We've proven to be safe, and you can't bring 2,000 horses back to that backstretch and all the people with the expectation that that's their livelihood. Probably 4,000 or 5,000 families directly impacted right off the bat April 17th, and we've got to get going and get live racing going in the afternoons, without spectators, of course, but in a very safe environment, and we've shown that we can do it. So I'm glad you segued right into that. We're excited about the start of the season. We've got a great program again this year. We're about to make an announcement about buttressing up the Ontario Sired program, which I'll leave that till it comes out. But there's a lot going on Woodbine on the thoroughbred side this year, and we're really pleased that at the number of stall applications, and it should be a great year at Woodbine on the thoroughbred side also.
Well, Jim, I have to say, your track record is impeccable. Pardon the pun. And so obviously you guys have done a fantastic job, and hopefully the city pays attention to that. Hopefully the racing community is taken care of when Bill C-13 goes through as it's expected to, and you guys are taken care of. And I want to thank you for taking the time to join us, Jim, and good luck on the upcoming season. Maybe we'll see some fans in the seats eventually, but barring that, just get out there and let them race, for crying out loud. I mean, the city of Toronto has to step up and make sure that happens. And thank you so much. And a reminder, folks, that we're all in it together. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate you guys having me on today. Thank you, and look forward to talking about it again.
Promotional consideration provided by ClubLink. ClubLink. One membership, more golf.
Slow play. It's a slippery slope. First you go looking for that lost ball, and then everything goes sideways. There are a lot of golfers on the course. Make certain of your point of entry, look quickly, and move on. Remember, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Find anything, Bob?
Not yet. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to hpibet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's hpibet.com. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the epic Joe Tilley Sports Contest is underway. We're giving away 12 Mitch Marner t-shirts. Yes, we are. And 3 beautiful color prints. Now, all you have to do to enter is invite 10 or more friends to Joe Tilley Sports on Facebook and subscribe to Joe Tilley on YouTube. We'll notify the lucky winners. 1 t-shirt or print will be handed out each week. Good luck. Time now for our weekly sports analytics segment. Here's Kwame Bryan.
Hi, my name is Kwame. I'm a developer ambassador at Algrand, and I'm bringing the stats for today's show. We have Gary Boulanger, a great jockey and trainer, and you can see here that we brought up stats for female horses, seeing that it's Women's Month, and a really great writer, jockey, trainer. Amazing story, seeing the adversity that he fought through and created an even greater career than he had before. Very inspiring, and looking forward to next week's assignment. And bye for now.
More than 2 million Canadian households now have access to live horse racing 24 hours a day for the entire month of March. Ontario Racing, in partnership with Woodbine Entertainment, is presenting a free preview of HPI TV throughout the month on Bell Television for subscribers. I encourage everybody to go on there and check it out. Time for my COSA Swiss pick of the week now. Last week, I took the number 5 horse, Make It Come True, in the opening leg of the Snowshoe Pacing Series for 3- and 4-year-olds. And check this out. Make It Come True with Ed Helsley in the buggy. A furious finish from last at the top of the stretch. And he's going to get him up on the outside there for the win. Yes, that's my 3rd win in a row. I've now got 3 wins, 2 seconds, and a 3rd, and a 4th on the season. This week, I'm going to go to Friday night's 9th race at Wood Mohawk, and I'll take the number 6 horse, Ivana Flyby. And this mare is piping hot right now, having won 3 in a row, moving up to the preferred level for owner Mike Tanev. Jody Jemison drives, and she will get the job done, folks. A reminder to visit Costa TV on Facebook and HPI TV on Bell for the latest harness news, and go to hpibet.com. Well, I honestly didn't see this coming, this slump by the Maple Leafs. 5 losses in 6 games against some teams they should really be beating. They face some hot goaltenders, folks. Yes, indeed. Freddie Anderson has not brought his A game to every game, but I really think that wrist injury has affected Matthews. It's thrown that line out of sync a little bit, but watch them come together as Austin's wrist gets better and better. Watch for the Buds to get their act together against Calgary. The Flames have been playing very solid defensively since Darryl Sutter took over, playing tougher as well. The North Division is really tightened up, but I still believe that the Maple Leafs are the team to beat. Some tough times for the Raptors. Their roster and coaching staff was gutted, whacked by the COVID protocol. They stumbled along in a really nasty slide, 6 in a row, 6 losses in a row, to get knocked right out of the playoff picture. Bodies are coming back, and they've got a soft spot in the schedule coming up, but it might be worth taking a look into, maybe at least looking at trading Kyle Lowry. Now, we're introducing a new basketball segment this week. Here's Keegan Levine with the Canadian Hoop and Scoop.
Hi, I'm Keegan Levine with Canadian Hoop and Scoop. Welcome to the show. And there's Canadians all around the NBA doing great things this season. And let's talk about Mississauga native and New York Knicks guard RJ Barrett. He's coming off a 17-point performance while adding 8 rebounds in the loss on Tuesday night to the 76ers. And this young man has loads of potential, and he's only getting started, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, let's take a look at RJ's journey to the NBA.
Manipulating, devastating off the glass, trying to preserve his victory for the Knicks. Barrett ties his career high with 27.
Before RJ Barrett emerged in the NBA, he lived in many countries across the globe as his father Rowan played professional basketball overseas until 2008, when his father retired and the family settled in Mississauga, Ontario. And Barrett could not have had a better mentor and father. Rowan, who is now the manager of Team Canada basketball, played on the last Canadian national team to make the Olympics back in 2000, and Rowan's mentorship and guidance could not be understated.
His family home in Mississauga, in the hallway between the living room and the kitchen, on the wall is Rowan's number 9 Team Canada Olympics jersey, right, with Barrett on the name. So you're walking past that literally, 10, 15 times a day. You're seeing it, you're absorbing it, you know what that means. And that's a goal that you can, literally don't have to put on a vision board, because you see it in your household as to what, someone with your last name can achieve.
RJ was the youngest player on Canada's under-16 team that won a silver at the FIBA Americas U16 tournament in Argentina. He led the team in scoring. And in 2017, Barrett led Team Canada to win gold at the U17 FIBA tournament. In the semi-final game against the US, Canada defeated them 99-87 behind RJ's 38 points. He was named the MVP of the tournament and the leading scorer, all the while having his father in his corner.
He's got the same gene pool as Rowan Barrett, his dad, who is a great player for Canada.
Having someone who's been through it, who's been a professional, who knows what it's like to play 3 and 4 nights or 2 on a back-to-back on the road, who knows what it's like to have a teammate in a contract year, maybe they're just playing for themselves and getting shots up, and that's frustrating. Having that sounding board with someone who can understand, that again is invaluable.
It wasn't just Rowan who mentored RJ, but also his godfather, Steve Nash, who happens to be Rowan's former teammate and Canadian basketball icon.
It's a bonus when your godson is the best 17-year-old basketball player on the planet. During our playing careers, we had a really strong bond that I think will last forever, and this asked me to be RJ's godfather.
Aside from his outstanding international career during his youth years, Barrett flourished playing at Montverde Academy, and during his junior year in 2018, he led them to an undefeated season. Barrett was dubbed a 5-star recruit and the #1 overall recruit in the class of 2018, receiving many D1 offers but ultimately deciding with Duke. RJ's stack of Division I offers was no surprise, as he was one of the top elite players in that 2018 recruiting class.
I know Rowan said he had a ball in his little playpen from the time he could crawl, and he always wanted to play.
Alongside big man Zion Williamson, RJ dominated in the NCAA, averaging just over 22 points a game in his freshman season as a Blue Devil. He was named to the Sporting News All-American First Team and landed on the cover of Slam magazine.
He's just so good at getting to the basket.
After an early exit, losing to Michigan State in the East Regional Finals of the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Tournament, Barrett declared for the 2019 NBA Draft.
With the 3rd pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select RJ Barrett from Toronto and Duke University.
Well, there you have it, folks. RJ Barrett, one of the NBA's brightest rising stars. And it's a good thing he said he's going to play for Team Canada this summer. And let's see if they can break that 20-year Olympic drought. Tune in next week as we look at RJ's rookie year and the season he has had so far. This has been Canadian Hoop and Scoop. I'm Keegan Levine.
All right, thanks, Keegan. Good stuff. The Dunedin, Buffalo, and maybe even Toronto Blue Jays are getting ready to open their season. Got some high hopes for the boys in blue. We're seeing some positive signs down south. Hyunjin Ryu had a real solid start this week, led the the American League in ERA last season, 3rd in the Cy Young voting, and you know what? He's got a little more zip on his fastball this spring. Vlad Guerrero's been tearing the cover off the ball. He's getting around the bases nicely too. Must be that new diet, maybe keto. Justin Thomas bounced back in a big way at the Players' Championship. The world's third-ranked player roared back from 4 shots down to beat out Lee Westwood by a shot. Thomas is in a good spot heading toward the Masters. Defending Masters champ Bryson DeChambeau had to settle for third, but he's coming off a win the week before. Corey Connors of Listowel, Ontario, had his second straight top 10 finish and appears to be ready to make some noise at Augusta. Okay, our weekly Joe Tilley Sports Contest winner this week is Brent Allison of Peterborough. Congratulations, Brent. You win a Mitch Marner t-shirt. You're going to enjoy that. And we close with a look at the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great folks. I highly recommend them all. A reminder that the show is also available on the Spanglish Network and on Zingo TV and the Fired Up Network. Thanks once again to Gary Boulanger and Jim Lawson. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week when Blue Jays broadcasting legend Jerry Howarth joins us. We'll see you then.
Get Aldo at RE/MAX Crossroads. Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit www.getaldo.com to find out what next-level real estate looks like. RS Demolition and Excavation has extensive experience with complete teardowns and interior strip-outs. Looking to build a custom home? RS Excavating Services has the experience you need to build and establish neighborhoods. For the highest level of quality and cost-efficient results, we provide innovative demolition solutions completed on time and on budget while ensuring our #1 priority, safety. Call 647-852-3006 for an estimate or visit rsdemolition.ca. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today, and let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. Gold Line Resources, discovering high-grade gold in Sweden. Gold Line Resources owns a prospective portfolio of 4 high-grade gold exploration projects located on the Gold Line mineral belt of north-central Sweden, and 1 gold exploration project in the Skellefteå belt of north-central Sweden. For more information on how you can invest in this new initiative, go to goldlineresources.com or call 1-800-858-9710. Gold Line Resources can also be found on the TSX Ventures Exchange as GLDL. Looking for an advantage in choosing your investment options? Belmont Venture Capital will provide you with the best up-to-date opportunities in the mid-cap and junior sector. The company was formed 12 and a half years ago and is spearheaded by 2 seasoned veterans of the financial markets with over 80 years combined experience. Go to BelmontVentureCapital.com today for the latest hot picks on the market. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. BelmontVentureCapital.com.